percent that's not vaccinated have constraints. They have things that they can't do, basically. Like they can't go to restaurants and stuff like that.
I understand this. Japan has never had lockdown, right? But they survived. And right now, even the vaccinated number have already over. Right, they started very late, but they have already caught up with most countries. I really do not know what's going on, man. Japan, way to go.
So now I'm curious as to whether the Europeans that feel like their countries are going to go into a more strict lockdown are going to try to flee and come to places like Thailand and
Lakeisha, they're already doing it. Lakeisha, they're already doing it.
I know, but I'm trying to brace myself. I just need to know to what degree the Europeans are. There are so many deals, business class flights from Scandinavia to Thailand right now. It was crazy. I was looking for Christmas fares back to the US, and I'm like, yeah, they're really trying hard to lure the Scandinavians in particular back, which is good. We need Scandinavians here.
Lakeisha, I'll just give you a little example. There was never a direct flight from Amsterdam to Cancun up until last week.
Oh, wow.
Well, as Tyler knows, that's got nothing to do with COVID. Thailand and Phuket have always been the third largest city to Sweden.
Yeah, no, you're right. There are just so many fares. I mean, I think I saw business class round trip tickets for like 1,200 euro or something crazy.
Yeah, that's the weather more than anything.
Is that cheap or expensive?
I think it's super cheap.
Right? 1,200 round trip. Okay, that's nice.
But we do notice that here, that I just wanted to add that we notice here that it's quite a myth that people have been traveling all along and are doing so. We do notice that in the holidays that have been, it's more that people are traveling within the country. They still are very restrictive with traveling. By choice is the difference.
Are people still wearing masks where the cases are going up? Just curious. I mean, especially in the Europe, are still wearing masks?
We can't hear you, Sodamini. You're in a matrix.
Sorry, I was getting a red bar. Can you hear me now?
No, not really. It's still pixelated.
I think she was asking if we were still wearing masks in Europe. And of course, that's very different from country to country. Here we've been, I mean, people have been very bad at wearing masks from day one. And now you don't see anyone. I think I'm one of the few, mostly because I'm terrified of getting any other respiratory disease, including the cold, since the post-COVID clinic I go to at the institute here, they say, everyone here is not allowed to get even the slightest cold. I'm like, yeah, good luck. How do we not get that in the winter in Sweden?
Yeah, right. Stay bundled up.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I meant the same. Thank you, Sarah.
Anyone here in the UK? Because I hear it's, especially when it comes to masks, they've been really good at wearing them.
It's amazing the difference between Tokyo or Thailand and Sweden in terms of mask wearing and other kind of very simple things. For example, as Lakeisha will tell you, and as we've said here before, you cannot walk into a building, and I mean any building, in all of Thailand without scanning your temperature and getting alcohol for your hands. And everyone's wearing a mask 100% all the time, even while they're riding motorbikes on the highway.
I live dangerously, Tyler. I actually walk along the beach without a mask.
Yeah, that would be considered wild behavior.
Dogs,
yeah,
but yeah, I'm living on the edge.
yeah.
That's it.
Lakeisha, okay. Don't say that, Lakeisha.
But
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. No. I'm walking just outside of my place without a mask. How about that? But I always have it on a motorbike under my helmet.
I was down in our underground. I don't think I've been for 2 years. I don't like going by underground even normally, but yesterday, and I was absolutely stunned because it was packed with people, and it was the first time since this whole pandemic started that I actually felt foolish walking around with a mask, and I thought, this is crazy.
Well,
Really? In Japan, it has become a fashion statement. There are so many colors of mask here, so many. So it's quite fancy now. And then the girls are actually doing smoky eyes makeup just because they can't do much behind the mask.
I
Yeah,
just
in
ordered a
Austria, they
really
have.
cute silk mask with beads for my friend's birthday party next Friday night.
Yeah,
Like,
something
what a
But if
fancy.
you
world.
look, in Europe, very different. Sweden and Spain right now are pretty good in the cases. Germany is hugely increasing. And Austria, they just, as of yesterday, have announced that any non-vaccinated person, they have to go for lockdown. So basically, now that the court has to decide whether this is something it's actually possible, because the government in Austria announced that basically the non-vaxxers have to stay at home, confined, or lockdown. This is kind of a bold move here.
What's your vaccination rate there? Because here, of course, it's crazy high.
It's not very high because you're kind of around 70% in many of the European countries, except for France, by the way, which was much higher because some of my French, in Geneva is of course surrounded by the French border, and some of the people here say that it was a very smart move by President Macron to basically say you cannot go to a restaurant if you're not vaccinated. You have to prove it in every restaurant. And as the gastronomy is so important in France, that has pumped up hugely the vaccination rates for people saying, oh, no, if I'm no longer able to go to a restaurant, I need a vaccination then.
Florian, it's a similar situation in Amsterdam as well. It's about 85% that's vaccinated. And yes, there is a vote that's going to the ministries about what you just described, because Netherlands is kind of playing with that idea of, well, but they are saying now the 15% that's not vaccinated cannot go to restaurants, external events, blah, blah, blah.
And of course, what one should check as well with the vaccination rate, because ours is also around 70%, but it's basically all adults. So of course, it's the demographic. Here it's under 12s that are not vaccinated.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Yeah, I was looking at the news this morning how few countries like Lorian was saying, Germany, Holland, and even France, trying to lock down the unvaccinated, but some kids cannot be vaccinated, right? Not all kids are qualifying for vaccination. So how do they discern when adults that are refusing to vaccinate in the lockdown and the kids who are not even eligible to vaccinate? I was just wondering that.
I
Well, it
think it's really how
depends.
you kind of say what it is, right? In Singapore, it's also 85%, and then they just say that, oh, in order to protect those that are not vaccinated, they are not encouraging them to go to those places. That's the reason why they have stricter measures on them. But it really depends on how you deliver the same thing, right?
Yeah, but I
It's more
think
about
that,
protecting them, yeah.
but that's, let's say, if we're looking at Europe here, and again, it's not one country, it's not one decision. It differs very much what governments
Right.
do. Even in Germany, for example, it differs also in the state-wise, which state does what and how they react. Now, I think there are three things the governments in Europe try to get done. Number one, to vaccinate all people. And therefore, of course, there is countries do different things in trying to foster that, either imposing or stimulating, sometimes by payment, sometimes by confining
Pursuing.
them, there are different ways. The second topic is they're trying now to, of course, the threshold age is going down. So in Switzerland, for example, my kids, my youngest ones are 12 years and they're fully vaccinated. And the age has gone down now. You can further vaccinate kids with a specific vaccine, depending, of course, on the approval of the country. And then the third topic is also now, as they have seen more and more people going into getting an infection despite a vaccination, then you have the booster shots. The booster shots in Switzerland, for example, right now, they're only allowed for people older than 70 years. And now in Geneva, for example, we've heard that I think as of next week, the age goes further down for people to get the third shot because they've seen that the coverage is less against the disease when the when the antibodies go down. So therefore, the boosters come on top. But again, those are the three ones. Besides, of course, the hygiene measures and it really depends because in some countries you don't need at all a mask in Europe. Some countries they still do in certain portions. Again, it's not just one language, and each government is struggling on its own.
Florian,
Question.
how much of this is political? Because Austria also came up with the lockdown for the non-vaccinated 35% of the population, and they are the government is facing a lot of protest by the far right Freedom Party.
Correct, and again, of course, and then very much also via social media, it is fostered. That the anti-vaxxers. Specifically, we just had, for example, also on the weekend here in Geneva, a manifestation of people in the city, against the COVID law, as they say. So it is a political topic, from right to left, or let's say from extremists to more moderates. Absolutely, that's on one side. The second thing is also then it depends on the culture. It depends also where you are in Europe. In the southern parts, for example, it's less cold than you go into the north. But again, unfortunately, it is politicized. It should not. It's a pandemic, and the pandemic should be just ruled by rules and regulations based on data and science. But unfortunately, it's not. And the big reasons are social media and our connectivity and getting just fed the wrong information.
But it gets very binary on issues like masks and vaccines. But why not then do I mean, Thailand is not a wealthy country, yet there are these incredibly simple temperature checks devices at the front of every building.
And the temperature, the problem is that the temperature is only for those which have the disease and have symptoms.
Correct.
So you have, of course, an incubation time from 4 to 14 days.
Right.
That's a lag, so
right.
That doesn't help. The second component is,
but it
you have
does
a lot
help.
of people which have it.
You don't want people who have temperatures going into buildings.
I
That's
think
correct.
it's more of a
Yeah, so
cultural thing
Flora,
as
So why not
well.
do
I
it?
mean,
yeah, of
because
course.
Asia was directly and hard hit with the SARS pandemic. Like 15 years or so ago, and I think culturally Asian cultures are more collectivist. So Tyler, remember, even before COVID, people wore masks, not only because of the air pollution during the burning season, but if someone had a cold, they wore a mask. So, I mean, I think that there have just been practices
I
that have
know.
been put in place over a longer period of
Yeah,
time
but
here.
this temperature scanning thing is, I don't think anyone can argue against it, although I no doubt people will make the argument Florian made, which is, oh, it doesn't catch everybody. Yeah, well, we're not trying to catch everybody.
It catches many, yeah.
We're going to try and catch as many as we can. We don't want people with temperatures going into buildings. We understand that some people can be sick without a temperature, but if you have a temperature, we absolutely don't want you in the building. And there's no real good argument against that. So why not do it? It costs the building about $5 to get one of these things.
And especially now that I have these devices, you can get the temperature and with your hand sanitizing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So
what we have in
it's very
Thailand.
cheap.
But it also, it isn't even necessarily a COVID issue. It's like, maybe it's a cold, maybe it's something else. We don't really care. If you have a temperature, we don't want you in the building, So especially I would say that goes, I don't, the places that don't adopt that, I question if they're even serious about this.
I mean,
Well,
it's
you know
just
what? I think
it's just generally good practice, I think,
it
too, even before
serves
COVID, to do that.
two purposes, because it works proactively, to keep people out of the buildings, but it also works individually. I know when I got my booster shot and I had a little spike of a temperature, I stopped by a supermarket on my way home and I set off the alarm. And so then I was like, okay, I'm not going anywhere. And I've had friends that felt like they were a little bit feverish and they made the decision not to go anywhere because they didn't want to set the alarm off. So I think that it promotes good behavior as well as keeping sick people out.
But again, why don't we? One question I have is, for example, I'm wearing an Apple Watch. Why doesn't Apple Watch constantly monitor my temperature? Because they do oxygen level in the blood, now, the latest versions. So in the same sense, that's something to monitor. I think that would be, if these
Yeah, the
Fitbits and others and whatever,
Aura
that's
Ring
easy to,
does do that. Or the
pardon me?
Aura Rings do check temperature in real time, even while you sleep, and that has been they did a study with UC San Francisco, and they believe that that using their device, you can even know that you have the signature temperature rise of a small amount while you sleep. That is kind of a signature of the early stages of COVID. So Aura's, they can't really market it that way, but they've done a few interviews about it. That it can be helpful in people getting an early indicator that they might have COVID.
And also other diseases, and of course pneumonia, that it is the actual killer, or really making one badly ill, and you don't want to spread that. I think it should absolutely be this way everywhere. I just wanted to take the opportunity and ask Cheryl with Singapore. Is it correct that they have they are saying that from December, if you were not vaccinated, you pay your own medical bills?
Okay, from
True?
December 8th, the government have announced that if you are unvaccinated by choice, if you fall sick because of COVID, they will not be paying the medical fees for you. But of course, your usual insurance still can cover it. I mean, of course, you pay a small amount, and then the insurance can still be used. But they are not going to, treat you 100% free of charge. Until now, they have been doing it. But I would like to understand from Patricia. Thank you for joining us on stage. You have a perspective from Germany.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I actually wanted to comment on the whole that Asians have been wearing masks, for a longer time to protect the rest of their community members from diseases, airborne diseases, and of course, not only COVID, but as you were also just pointing out in the group, there's the influenza and there are other diseases that you can be spreading, and it's so interesting because in Germany now, I mean, the numbers are really, really going up, and intensive care beds are getting a little tight again for vaccinated as well as unvaccinated people. Of course, unvaccinated people are more likely to get a serious case, but for everybody, it's a danger. And here, the masks are being taken off again, for example, in fitness centers. And so basically, I told the fitness center where I do the cardiovascular sport for the people. I said, listen, why are you taking the masks off here? This is crazy. We're going to run into another lockdown. And they said, well, they had 20% of the people cancel their subscriptions to the fitness centers, saying, we will only come back when you don't make us wear masks anymore. And it's really a weird sentiment that we have here in Central Europe, or at least in Germany, that masks is a bad thing, and that that it's reduces our freedom. And I actually, every time I vaccinate, I go through this little speech saying, I hope we will look to our Asian colleagues and keep the masks, because even if COVID, if the vaccines work, there's still other vaccines I don't want, other diseases I don't want to have from people that are riding on the subway. So it's really great that in Asia this has been a long tradition, and I really hope that we will change our mindset regarding masks in public and crowded spaces.
But Patricia, why compared with maybe some North European countries, the vaccination rate in Germany actually is low compared with others, just below 70%. So is there an issue with the vaccination in Germany?
No, so the vaccination is really readily available. I think it is more that there are a lot of people who are doubting the whole so this is a discussion I really don't like getting into it because I find it very strenuous. But there are a lot of people doubting vaccines as an effective way of preventing COVID, and of course, it is not, going to get rid of COVID. It's just going to reduce the severity of the cases, like most vaccines do. And a lot of people are saying, we're young and we don't want to be vaccinated, and we don't care if we want to. If we get it, we'll just be immune after having contracted the disease. And I think so there are a lot of people who are still afraid also because it is a new type of vaccine. So I think the vaccination rate would get a lot higher if we got one of the more traditional protein based vaccines accredited in Germany, at least, because I do notice a lot of patients asking, like, when is it coming, because it was going to come in February, then they pushed it down to the summer, and now they've pushed it down again to next year. Yeah, I think it's going to go up with the protein-based vaccines. I think there's a lot of distrust for mRNA and vector-based vaccines in Germany.
We got to get into some headlines. So because I got to run out for 2 minutes in 10 minutes. The Wall Street Journal says they have sources that Activision CEO failed to inform the board of Activision about allegations an employee had been raped by her supervisor in 2016 and 2017 after a settlement. Top didn't inform the board of some reports, including alleged rape. The company faces multiple regulatory investigations. Over 100, and then there's a related post now from the Washington Post that over 100 Activision employees staged a walkout on Tuesday, that was yesterday, after a Wall Street Journal report, the second in 4 months, demanding that the CEO, Bobby Kotick, step down. The story has been updated from the... Okay. And then the next one is...
Tyler, just real quick. I mean, I think, remember a few months ago, and we had this debate about whether it was appropriate for people to date their subordinates or people within their organizations. This is a prime reason as to why. I mean, not to say the person who made the rape allegations is not being sincere, but I believe there were other harassment types of allegations over a period of time. And so I think this is why lots of companies have, taken a pretty strong stance against, subordinates dating people who report to them, at least, because a relationship gone wrong can have severe implications on the overall corporate structure.
So the next one is also a two-part, two different headlines that fit together. The first is that Facebook, what now calling themselves Meta, details a new haptic glove prototype that uses air pockets to simulate touching of objects in VR, and has been in development for 7 years. A new sci-fi interface for the metaverse. You cannot pet a dog in the metaverse unless you're wearing, a haptic glove, and then you can pet a dog and you can lift objects and, hug people and do all kinds of things with haptic gloves. So that's interesting in and of itself. And people are excited about that. But then there's a potentially related article of a company called HaptX. Yeah, I think they pronounce it HaptX. It's spelled HAPTX. Developer of haptic gloves for VR says that Facebook's prototype is quote unquote substantively identical to our glove that we demoed to Facebook executives. And they
which
say,
is also it's also a very it's a very interesting glove. That haptics glove actually runs on pneumatics, so there's like an air compressor with 16 tubes going into the glove. So it's very strange that they would use that model. That's their best model, but it does simulate like a little spider going on your hand. It's pretty incredible. But that's a shock that the Facebook would want to go with that. That's more of a commercial grade glove because you need a compressor pretty much to run it.
It's a Seattle startup calls Meta's VR glove prototype substantively identical to their own patented tech. Well, if it's patented, then you're protected and you should be jumping up and down. Meta made a big announcement Tuesday about how it hopes to bring touch to the virtual world through the use of haptic gloves. Haptic gloves developed by the company's Reality Lab research. But the news came at a bit of a backhand. The news came as a bit of a backhand to a Seattle startup that said it had been pioneering the technology since 2012. So that's 9 years. HaptX has been working on haptic gloves that employ microfluid feedback technology with an aim toward helping enterprise customers working in virtual reality and robotics. In a statement, HaptX founder and CEO Jake Rubin said that Meta's gloves appear to be substantively identical to HaptX's patented technology. Rubin pointed to core components of Meta's prototype, including a silicon-based microfluid tactile feedback laminate and pneumatic control architecture. In its news release and a longer blog post Tuesday, Meta listed examples of where its team was pushing human-computer interactions forward and creating new breakthroughs to make haptic gloves a reality. Among those breakthroughs, Meta listed microfluids and said it was developing the world's first high-speed microfluid processor. Rubin said HaptX welcomes interest in competition in the field of microfluid haptics. However, competition must be fair for the industry to thrive. He added that the startup has not heard from Meta, but that HaptX would look forward to working with them to reach a fair and equitable arrangement that addresses our concerns and enables them to incorporate our innovative technology into their future consumer products. And there's a photo in the article that I'm looking at of this wild-looking glove. I'm wondering, let me check if Cheryl pinned that one. Yeah, that's if you look in there, you'll see this amazing-looking glove thing. And then the other article is there's a photo of the Facebook glove, so we can compare them. Holy shit, they're identical. Oh my god. Those are identical. So do this, everybody. Click on the story at the top of the room and scroll down and look at a photo of the glove. They have a really nice up close photo of the glove, right? Now that you've seen that, now let's update the link at the top of the room to Facebook's glove. Oh, it says they don't support that link. Oh shit. Why not? Let me try it like this.
But
Was this
but Tyler,
copyright infringement of the glove on the picture?
Hold on. Let me try this. There we go. Now look at this photo of the Facebook glove. Anyone get a chance to see both?
Yeah, this seems
yeah,
like the 2.0
Yeah,
version of
so
that one.
but aren't all gloves supposed to look the same? A glove is a
exactly,
glove.
exactly. How do we differentiate these? Because when Facebook came up with whole wall of social network, everyone started
I'll be back in
building.
2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll
It's
just.
the pneumatic. It's the gloves are made differently. There's some that are used as sensors. The haptics one is a unique one because it uses pneumatics. So it has many it has 16 tubes that go into the glove that then basically utilizing pneumatics and air pressure will simulate haptics. So that's a very unique structure that they set up, and it looks like, I guess it does look like Facebook copied them exactly.
Yeah, they didn't even try to make it look different, which says to me almost that maybe they are saying, "Go ahead and sue us. We will grind you to pieces."
Yeah, I think they're just probably disrespecting the IP and probably just think that they can pay it out, so they just went ahead.
But in all honesty, the whole buzz around metaverse to scale would be because of Facebook effort, and I'm not saying that the individual players need not establish their own kingdom or zone, but I think had there been no meta announcement, or let's say that that sort of global buzz wouldn't be there. So all of these small players are also getting benefited. It's not possible for that company to bring that whole metaverse thing into buzz compared to Facebook. So it's fine that people are building on top of each other. It's too soon to be like, you know, regulating all of this tech.
What use cases are they talking about with this glove?
Petting the dog in metaverse.
It gives
High
you
value
feedback.
use case.
Well, in principle, it lets you feel whatever it is that you're virtually touching. And there have been other technologies that allow you to have that kind of a remote sensing that you feel the pressure, and this just makes it more realistic in principle. It could be anything.
In the haptic glove demo video, they showed like you are simulating how you fly a plane, so that gives you how heavy the handle is. So I think that helps to learn under this kind of simulation scenario. They are learning how to fly a plane. That means you don't need to have the traditional hard equipment of all simulation machines.
I see. But it's
I
still,
just
it's still
wonder,
world.
like, what aspects of the design are universal, right? So if it's a glove, it needs to have 5 fingers in theory, right? And it needs to have some sort of nodes to be able to collect or to connect electronically. And so, not being a techie, I mean, I'm sure there are technical aspects that are also universal. So I think that probably would be. A discussion to have around, how real, how would I say, how much has actually been copied and how much of it is just part of the universal design of the device.
But then if they had a meeting and showed them their design and then this thing appears, I mean, that's kind of fishy, no?
Well, it depends. We need
It
someone really from within this industry to tell us whether this is pretty common, that you could go to any university and see people building something that looks pretty similar, or is this something that was really unique? Certainly the Facebook one to me looks like a 2.0 version of the last one. It's a little bit better. Uh, it's it's pretty trim. It's more buttoned up.
The gloves of the Meta, it has all those little black um, dots. So the HaptX glove doesn't have those. So does that count identical?
I saw both of them. I thought the Facebook one was just a next generation version of it. Seemed just thinner and not as exposed.
Okay, got it.
so
Tyler, you back?
yeah, I'm back.
Fantastic. Okay.
Here we go. So the next one is Microsoft shifts Windows 10 from 2 major updates per year to 1 and announces that only Windows 11 will support emulating apps on or x64 apps on ARM devices. And the next one is that Qualcomm says its next generation PC chips will be designed by its recently acquired Nuvia team, hopes they will ship in devices in 2023 and be M series competitive. And the Qualcomm chief financial officer says that the company expects to supply just 20% of Apple's modern chips or modem chips by 2023, supporting rumors that Apple's modem chips are launching soon. And Qualcomm expects to grow its entire chip business 12% by 2024, with IoT sales of $9 billion, up from $5 billion, automotive to grow to $8 billion. The stock closes up, jumped about 8% on that very positive forward-looking guidance. And they said even despite losing some of Apple's business, they suspect, they believe they still have a very strong future ahead. Next up is from Variety that Netflix expands its top 10 lists to display the most viewed shows and movies. For English and non-English titles ranked by aggregate viewing hours. Netflix says it's heard the complaints about how it cherry picks the self-reported data it releases about content viewed on its platform. So they're expanding the top 10 lists. And next up, code within the iPhone operating system, known as iOS 15.2, reveals the existence of a private sports kit framework currently integrated with Apple TV, Siri, and home screen widgets. So what is the sports kit framework? Nobody really knows yet. As looking at the article, it's all about like sports teams, professional sports teams playing each other. Sports Kit home screen widget includes the ability to receive real-time updates of sports matches. Right now, Siri can already show sports scores, so Apple probably wants to expand this interaction to other parts of iOS and their TV operating system. To keep in mind about this API is that SportsKit is currently being developed as a private framework, meaning the feature won't be available to every developer. Okay, fair enough. So that's what that's about. The next one is from Vice, so take it with a huge grain of salt. It says that Israeli spyware vendor Kangaroo, which we've covered, the world first learned about Kangaroo a couple months ago. So Vice says Israeli spyware vendor Kangaroo recently blacklisted by the US. Yep, we read that headline last week. Waged, quote unquote, a watering hole attacks on the United Kingdom and Middle Eastern websites that were critical of Saudi Arabia and others. Cybersecurity researchers tracked a hacking campaign spanning more than a year that hit around 20 websites. And it says, I'll read it here. It says a group of hackers compromised a popular London-based news website that focuses on Middle East with the goal of hacking its visitors, according to researchers. And that's what's called a watering hole attack, where you infect a website and then you hope that your target comes to that website and then the website infects your target. Kind of like an alligator waiting in a watering hole. So on Tuesday, cybersecurity firm called ESET published a report detailing the hacking campaign, which spanned from March 2020 until August of this year. During this time, according to the report, hackers compromised around 20 websites, including Middle East Eye, a popular independent news site that covers the Middle East and Africa and is based in the UK. The hackers compromised these websites in what are technically known as watering hole attacks that I just described. Here's the quote: We were never able to get the final payload, so it shows the attackers were very careful in their selection of the targets. So what that means is the trap that you leave in the watering hole for the visitors can be tailored to very specific visitors, so that if other researchers try to come and find your trap, they won't. It's like a personalized, tailorized trap. For example, you might only be targeting people from Canada who visit this website in the UK, because you know the person you want to infect happens to be Canadian, for example. And so if other people from America go to the site, they wouldn't be infected. So they can be tailorized is sort of the point. Because the researchers could not receive the malware, we don't know who are the final targets. Researchers explained in the report that the hackers also compromised several government websites in Iran, Syria, and Yemen, as well as sites of an Italian aerospace company and a South African government-owned defense conglomerate, all websites with links to the Middle East. The hackers, according to the researchers, may have been customers of the Israeli spyware vendor Kangaroo, a company that was recently put on the blacklist by the U.S. government. Kangaroo is one of the most mysterious spyware providers out there. The company has no website, and it has allegedly changed several times. Kangaroo offers high-end cyber intelligence platform dedicated to infiltrate PC computers, networks, and mobile handsets. Okay, next up is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, authorizes a company's prescription VR treatment for chronic lower back pain in adults. Wow. A handful of other digital therapeutics, the Food and Drug Administration authorized a virtual reality system as a prescription treatment for chronic back pain.
Well, now there's a use case for that gloves.
In this case, I don't know that you even need the gloves in this case. But, that's kind of wild. Huh. The next one from Bloomberg, Microsoft launches a new data center in Sweden that runs on only renewable energy in partnership with state-owned utility Vattenfall, which is the Swedish word for waterfall, the big energy company up here. And
were you involved, Tyler?
No, I wasn't. But I know who was. And generally how these things play out and Sweden's been winning all of these with the exception of Google, I believe. We got Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, but not Google. Data centers up here in Sweden now. And I believe Google went to...
They are in Finland.
Say again?
Google are in Finland.
Oh, they went to Finland? Okay.
I think Microsoft has, multiple data centers around Europe, and so I read that they had 250 data centers around the world, and they're adding 50 per year. So they're diversifying, and it got me thinking. You've heard some of this FUD in the U.S. now that all these Bitcoin miners have moved in to the U.S. from China, and worries in Texas in particular about whether they can handle all of the energy requirements of these servers. And it started to make me wonder, maybe there's some people in this room that know a lot more about it. Is this whole SaaS model energy efficient versus the old model of doing computing locally?
Sweetheart, I have an event. Can call you back soon?
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be a lot.
Can go quickly.
A lot more efficient. I mean, if you're processing externally in a central hub, the reason it's more efficient is, I mean, you have a lot of think about if you have one central node, right, that is doing processing, and if you had to process, let's say, 100 things, and that those 100 things that you needed to process, costed 100 pieces of energy, right? Well, the nice thing about it, when you centralize it in a data center structure, and you have nodes outside over the internet, is you can go up and down. So if you needed to process 100 things, but at different times you could process 98 things, 97 things. You could scale up and down. Whereas if you have 100 nodes, they don't need to process all the time, but they'll be running all the time, right? So let's say they needed to process a piece of information once, and you have to let the machine run 24 hours to run that one thing, versus putting it on a central node. You need to process that item one time. Well, then it just turns on and off when it needs to. So it's significantly more power efficient, so that we don't just have all these computers running around idle. It's similar to cars, right? Like, you only use your car 5% of the time. The rest of the time it's sitting there, not being used. The difference with computers is they're usually turned on, consuming power.
Good explanation. Thank you.
But the
Tyler,
whole
you're
idea
muted.
behind is to have decentralized computations. So I think the Bitcoiners would say that Bitcoin needs to be more consuming more power, so that the actual value of Bitcoin comes out. It need not less consume. Bitcoin should not consume less power. It should consume more power, so that the actual underlying value of the coin there. And the whole idea is about that the one loner miner and his laptop, of course not exactly laptop, but a small system should be able to mine it.
Okay. This one is Brave browser now has built-in cryptocurrency wallet. That's freaking awesome. Sidestepping the need for extension-based wallets like MetaMask. Why use an extension when it's a built-in tool? Brave has announced that its web browser now includes a native cryptocurrency wallet.
This was
And
long overdue because
yeah,
MetaMask was extremely hard to use, and even this is going to be hard to use for most people. But it's a step in the right direction. I think they cut a deal with Solana to do that, if I'm not mistaken.
one
The
is
other piece of it is MetaMask is owned by Brian Armstrong, and Brian Armstrong is the founder of Coinbase, and he has a number of control points on the whole industry. So I think it's good to decentralize things.
okay. So the next one is Microsoft and Uber leave the Internet Association. Microsoft says its decision was part of a periodic review to ensure alignment with their policy agenda. Okay. Then I guess that's a major lobbying group. Does anyone know much about the Internet Association? Let's have a looky here. It says a trade group that lobbies on behalf of internet companies and the tech industry. Yeah, exactly. It's a lobbying group. Microsoft and Uber, two major members, is a blow for the group. The association has seen steadily waning influence in DC in recent years, partly because it does not work on the competition and antitrust issues that beset the industry right now. And they've responded by saying it's always unfortunate to lose a member, but business decisions related to time and resources are to be respected. And Microsoft and Uber have been great supporters for nearly a decade. We have every hope that they may return in the future. And we remain nearly 40 strong with new members having been added, such as Discord, Notarize, and Newsbreak. We advocate for public policies to support our business goals. Okay. Next is that Mozilla launches Firefox Relay, which offers up to 5 email aliases out of beta and introduces a $1 a month premium tier for unlimited email aliases. If you want to be a super spammer. The next one is that Twitter stops automatically refreshing timelines on the web with new tweets after users complained about disappearing tweets. And a cybersecurity firm called Mandiant says it has high confidence that Belarus is partly responsible for Ghostwriter, a hack and leak operation in some US states. Gosh, Belarus. Hackers? Really? The Belarusian government has been accused of at least partial responsibility for Ghostwriter attacks in Europe, while cybersecurity companies often err on the side of caution when it comes to attribution of threat groups. Mandiant says that it has high confidence that Ghostwriter, also linked to UNC 115 activities, is a cyber criminal outfit potentially working on behalf of the Belarusian government. Sanctions were placed on Belarus earlier this year after the forced diversion of a commercial plane into Belarus airspace to arrest a passenger, a dissident journalist. Now, in retaliation, the country's president, Alexander Lukashenko, has been accused of engineering a migrant crisis to destabilize the European Union. We've covered all of those points in detail here.
Do you think, Tyler, do you think they were saying that even today I was reading something that they said Belarus is now fully just a puppet of Russia. So maybe the Russian hackers are also just doing their work in Belarus?
Yes, it's very likely that some of the folks involved are involved. So the article says, it seems that retribution may go further with Ghostwriter. The European Council has previously accused Russia of Ghostwriter involvement. Oh, wow. What a shock. What a surprise. What a tremendous holy guys, all this time we thought it was Norway, and it turns out that these hackers in Belarus, wow, previously Russian, and then Biden met with Putin in Geneva back in June, and then what do you know? These hackers start showing up in Belarus, as I predicted they would, and in the Ukraine, as I predicted they would. And wow, what a shock. According to the cybersecurity researchers, Russian interference cannot be ruled out. Right. Exactly. In addition, Ghostwriter has been involved in attacks against Belarusian dissidents, media, and individual journalists. Ghostwriter once focused on promoting anti-NATO material. Oh my God, if that doesn't tell you who's behind it, I don't know what does. For those who don't know, Putin's main thought in his head is how to deal with NATO. And the fact that Ghostwriter's promoting anti-NATO material, and one of Putin's biggest objectives is to destabilize NATO, and because he sees it as a big enemy on his border. And well, he intentionally tries to keep Belarus and Moldova and Ukraine out of NATO so that there's these buffer states between the NATO states and Russia. I can tell you right now, this is most certainly Russians in Belarus, as I predicted many months ago. And there might be some Belarusians mixed in there because, they, even if it was a Russian-led, they would be smart to engage with local Belarusians to kind of act as the sort of face of it, and they kind of pull the strings from the back anyways.
I guess that's kind of the same thing as what's going on in Poland at the border.
Exactly what's happening in Poland, by the way. Exactly. Not only Poland, Latvia, Poland, Ukraine, and Belarus. Exactly right. So the next one is celebrity NFTs from Grimes, ASAP Rocky, and John Cena. Who doesn't want an NFT from John Cena? And others have dropped significantly in value. Well, apparently a lot of people don't want them, leaving some buyers with large losses. What? I thought NFTs only went up. Tokens from Grimes and ASAP Rocky fall, leaving buyers with losses. You mean the hype is dying?
Tyler, you know what's really fascinating about the NFT space is that I was just talking to a friend of mine that works for a venture capital firm here in Holland, and it's super fascinating because the hype of the NFTs is more about understanding what NFTs are, and the people that will hold on to these assets, that's what they are, right? Non-fungible tokens, they're assets. The people that hold on to them over the winter, the NFT winter as they're calling it, right, are going to be the ones that will stand true when the next market rises, right? Because we're now in a point of consolidation, and we're at a point where the market's preparing to go higher. And this has been consistent since 13, 14, 15, 16, all the years. We're heading to Black Friday. Next week is Black Friday. We're going to Thanksgiving. We're going to the holiday season. And it's been notorious that this is around the time that the market starts to get a little bit crazy. However, when Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two Mac Daddy coins, start to go doing what they do, NFTs start to go lower, or they just drop because people move their liquidity from those NFTs and they start realizing, oh shit, these NFTs are great in collecting art and stuff, and they give me some value, but they're not going to give me any gains. They're not going to give me any development of my portfolio to grow it, right? So they're moving liquidity as well. The challenge that's going to happen here is that those individuals that have the Grimes, or as you said, this person that wants to be collected, those who hold on to it will be fine. But as I've said many times, 95% of these projects and this artwork and these tokens and these assets they'll be worthless during the winter. They'll be worthless, and only a handful of them will be successful after the fact. And that, like, when we come back into, and it's very similar to the crypto punks from 17, right? Very similar to from 15, similar to the crypto kitties. You know, the crypto kitties had its rush back then, but this year, the crypto kitties was still number 3 and number 4 of NFT activities. So just look at that as an example. CryptoKitties were 4 years ago, but they're still hyped now as well. They're just like the OG NFTs, right? The OG NFTs will be those NFTs of this market will be the OGs that people will be looking for when they come into the market next around NFTs. Hope that was clear.
So the next one is that the United States Senate confirms Google critic and competition lawyer Jonathan Cantor as Biden's Department of Justice antitrust chief. And that's who the folks that are going to have to fight big tech for sure. And he's an outspoken Google critic. So I'm sure they're loving that. The next one's a new one from the LA Times, that LA's iconic Staples Center, which is the main arena in downtown Los Angeles, to be renamed as Crypto.com Arena.
Tyler, that was what I posted right directly after my very, very unique post with tagging Jack on it. Because now I'm very curious how much Jack, Twitter, Square are going to be involved in the battle of which city will be the first city to launch his wallet out of the United States. Will it be Miami or will it be New York City? I'd be curious.
So it's
I have a little content to add here, and it's about the crypto space overall, and how I think the NFT space follows the overall crypto space, and that is there's an interesting event occurring in I guess it's 4 days time now. In Japan, there's going to be a distribution based on the settlement of the Mt. Gox hack. And I think Mt. Gox was hacked could it be 750? It was a lot of coins, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. And so it's been an ongoing multi-year settlement. And the people with the claims against Mt. Gox are going to get some distribution. And there are a lot of hedge funds in New York who are basically shorting the market right now, and that's why we have a lot of volatility, including in the NFT space.
So, Tyler, I would love to hear your thoughts on the tweet from this morning regarding what Twitter is doing around their wallet, and yes, because that is something, to Craig's point, which was. It's an interesting perspective, but I would take it from a different way, and you just touched on something. The fact that they're going to be getting that money as well means that more liquidity is going to flow into the market if that's going to be settled soon, because that means they're going to get that money back. And once they get that money back, if you think they're going to be scared, they're going to go right back into the market. They just want access to it. Many of the maxis or anyone that's had anything related to Mt. Gox or Cryptopia or any of these other exchanges that got sort of lambasted in the 2017 run, if they get access to them from these lawyers, they're going to have more liquidity that they're going to want to push into this current market. So that's one thing to be aware of. But Tyler, I want to hear your thoughts on what I tweeted, because I think that's very interesting, because if he does have access to the United States to introduce Lightning Network, which city would he do with Miami, New York City battling to be the cities in the U.S. that are crypto friendly?
Well, to me, the part that caught my attention, I have the article here, a Square Cash app reportedly working on Lightning Network integration, which is not that big of a surprise because Twitter itself is working on Lightning Network integration, and Jack is the CEO of both Twitter and Square. The article says that Square is working on Lightning Network integration, and Jack Dorsey is both the CEO of Square and Twitter, which hinted that Twitter would integrate Lightning Network payments. In October, Square said its Cash App Pay is available as a payment method at point of sale online. And the thought that went through my mind is how, when was this? It was right when Clubhouse, when we started Tech News Around the World. So that would have been like February or March. I did a Twitter space when it was in a beta testing, and I made a Twitter space room, and one of the CFO from Twitter joined the room. His name's Ned, who, by the way, is in another headline today himself. I have to go find where that went. But so I asked Ned. I said, "Hey, Ned, I think Twitter is going to join the social commerce game and combine it with crypto. And I think that because you have the same CEO, Jack Dorsey, with Square, that every Twitter account will get a Square Cash App wallet, which holds Bitcoin, and so that people in Twitter will be able to give and use Bitcoin within Twitter. And a lot of people said, well, Bitcoin's not good for transacting and whatnot. But these recent moves around Lightning on both, first they made the move in Twitter, and now they're making the move in the Cash App wallet. I think my question to Ned is coming to fruition. I think that's his vision. I think that's what Jack wants to do. I think Jack wants to see Bitcoin adopted widely globally, and he's going to use the tools that he has, which are Twitter and Square and the Cash App, to enable that to its fullest potential.
I
But
agree.
this was his vision, Tyler, from the Bitcoin conference. I mean, even when I heard him speak, this was his vision. I mean, just the eloquence on how he was speaking and just a look in his eye, he definitely had a bigger vision in his head, clearly.
He's using Twitter and Square in service of Bitcoin.
I agree with all those comments.
Correct.
I would add that the other piece of it is decentralization. So he's going to likely create an exchange based on a DAO that sits up in the cloud. And
I agree.
Actually, did you not see the news that he's already talking about building an exchange? Did that not get covered at all, Tyler? Did that get missed?
It got overlooked. Why?
Yeah, it got totally overlooked because I tweeted that out a while ago that he's already looking at doing an exchange. Yeah.
And
Hey, let me
and it's also
ask a
very
question, Tyler.
Craig, you're right. The indications show he wants to take Twitter in a decentralized way. He wants to take this whole finance element, what they call Blue Sky. And Blue Sky is the decentralized Twitter, but what's the word they're using for the kind of Bitcoinization project that they have going on? Are they also calling that Blue Sky?
I don't know. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but I was under the impression that Twitter was the decentralized Blue Sky that he's talking about, but the rest of it, he's been really sort of. I know there's the wallet Moon. What was the wallet that he said he liked?
Moon wallet, yeah.
Yeah, Moon wallet, and he said it was like he wanted to make it easy for his grandmother, and I think that logic is where he's going to actually get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling he'll even make the decks. He'll even make his decks really simple and possibly gamified to the point that anyone could use it. You know, it's similar to what Thinkorswim did with TD Ameritrade. The reason why so many young influencers on TikTok around the financial space are active on it, quote unquote, is because they learned all about trading and investing through the educational platform that Thinkorswim gamified. And that's actually how I upskilled a lot of my skills, was through the same platform. And TD Ameritrade made an amazing gamification to the whole trading experience through their app called Thinkorswim. And I would say that he'd be looking at something, in my opinion, I think he'd be looking to gamify the decks, similar to what TD Ameritrade did with Thinkorswim. And those that don't know Thinkorswim, I wouldn't be surprised they don't know it, because it's a connection that's a lot more user-friendly and gamified, and a lot of the young people, especially following the influencers on TikTok, a lot of the young people are trading on there. See, they're in Thinkorswim. They're not in TD Ameritrade's main site where their parents might go. They're in the Thinkorswim. And that's where they're getting the educational modules, because they actually educate you, and the education is really good.
So let me ask a question, Tyler. Here's what I'm still trying to wrap my head around with the Bitcoin on a worldwide basis, right? Once these guys all start to receive Bitcoin, right? How about the payer side? Will they? How do you? Are we close to having completely decentralized? Like I'm in India right now, right? And so if someone has a Bitcoin wallet and they just want to buy something, from Twitter, as an example, would they have to register and have can they just use a normal wallet to transfer out and stay anonymous? Like, will these platforms basically allow anonymous payers?
I
I can try to
imagine that
answer.
if they're cooperating with the governments, they won't be able to.
So I can try to answer that.
Sure.
You have centralized exchanges, and that would be the Coinbases of the world, the Binances of the world, located in different jurisdictions. In Binance case, they try not to have a headquarters to get around this KYC, or not have a headquarters. And then you have the decentralized exchanges, the DEXs that Amy was speaking about. And there you don't have KYC. You also have local Bitcoins. So you can go, if I was in India, we could meet up, and if I had Bitcoin, I could exchange it with you. Those are the three ways, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, because what I'm seeing is the need to unlock. I mean, I'm over here. I just had, like, I had to transfer a chunk of money from the U.S. over here. It was a donation. We put on the thing donation. It took 2 days, and then now they're like, nope, you can't put a donation. It has to be something, even though it's going to be for a donation to a hospital. It has to be a consultancy service, so we got to redo it. It's so like everything is jammed up, especially now, like around in other parts of the world. So I just whoever I think the winners are going to be whoever figures out how to let the money flow around from place to place, where people just don't have to deal with all these blocks along the way, anonymously too.
Meher, it's also what you're describing as the bureaucracy of all the intermediaries that make these payments and all these processes get stuck. And that's something that clearly decentralization can fix. However, decentralization is going to have moving parts, and it's going to have a lot of decentralized nodes. So I think what you're seeing is a battle between centralization and decentralization, because decentralization can make it quicker, certain processes. I know that Ben comments on how blockchain technology is slow. Yeah, I get that, but there is still the element of distributed ledger technology that makes the access to the information faster, because the information is all over. It's not just in one person's office, if you could imagine that. And what you're running into is the fact is that it's in one person's office, and it's got to go through protocols and approvals. And that long chain, that daisy chain, makes it very, very complicated to be efficient. And decentralization and that DLT ledger will, in fact, allow that movement of that data. So now Tyler's favorite, data is king, data is money. That movement of that data at a faster pace is what's going to make whoever is able to do that, what teams are able to do that eloquently, will be the ones that will get most of the bigger processes. That's why Chainlink is 97% of the Oracle business, because it's providing 97% of the real-time data feeds to the blockchains. So there goes your decentral. If you imagine you have a blockchain and you have an Oracle that's bringing in that data feeds, there go your two entities that hold data. But now you have processes that have to pull data from those two pieces. Will be built by APIs, and those APIs have to be built by people in the industry that know the process to disrupt. And clearly what you're seeing is a starter. It's a bit like the .com era, where a lot of companies will come forward, but not all will stay. But the ones that will stay will be the ones that understand the depth of the process, able to disrupt it in a way that it saves money, and it saves time, and it makes a large populace fulfilled. But that's just my perspective.
Okay. So, hold on. I just saw Maria's down here. Carlson here. Okay. So here we go. We got this next one from Axio says, analysis. The top 5 most followed accounts on TikTok do not rank in the top 50 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. Interesting. So the top TikTokers are exclusively TikTok. Social media accounts with the most followers. The top 3 accounts on Facebook are Facebook itself, then Samsung, and then Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer player. They all have about 160 million followers. On YouTube, the top is T-Series, and then Coco Melon Nursery Rhymes, and then SET India. And then on TikTok, it's Charlie D'Amelio, Cobain Lame, and Addison Ray. And then on Instagram, it's Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. And then on Twitter, it's Barack Obama, Justin Bieber, and Katy Perry. And the numbers are by far the biggest on Instagram. Well, most of the apps are like 120 million, but on Instagram, they're like 400 million, 300 million. But interestingly, the TikTok stars don't really participate on the other apps. So the next one is from CNBC. The UK refers NVIDIA's planned ARM acquisition to the CMA for a 24-week investigation. Let's see if that deal is going to go through. I think it will. The next is Bloomberg says they have sources that China is empowering a quasi-government body to certify local suppliers in areas like cloud and semiconductors to reduce reliance on foreign tech. The ever-going decoupling. Committee of 1,800 firms will certify trusted technologies. U.S. blacklisting of Chinese giants adds urgency to effort. Yep, because they need people to certify that people are making what they're saying they're making, and the U.S. Don't want nothing to do with that. So next one's from Bloomberg that Grub Market, an online marketplace connecting farmers and customers, raises $200 million from Tiger Global and BlackRock. My God. At a $1.2 billion valuation. Imagine having both BlackRock and Tiger Global as your investors. That'd be an interesting board meeting. A software maker and operator of an e-commerce platform connecting farmers and other food suppliers with customers. Amen.
Can you
Tyler,
post that one up, please?
Yeah, here it comes.
Tyler, there's one that I haven't found the source because the source came to me by a human being. Did you hear or have found the document or the news that the CEO of Coinbase is also starting the first ever crypto fund?
One of the co-founders, yes.
Yeah, one of the co-founders. Okay, cool.
$2 billion fund.
Yep.
Yes.
Is it Craig who's asking for the article? Because this is from Bloomberg, so we can't really pin it up because there's
I
a
just pinned it.
paywall. Yeah, but it's robot. It will just ask you, are you a robot? Look, it's a paywall.
I just tweeted
You can
it
pin
as
it.
well.
Yeah. Just look at the tweet. Go to TNATW.
Okay. The next one, that some Grab users in Southeast Asia are still reporting problems with the app over a day after outages started. Grab says core services have been restored. Okay. It's just showing that people are becoming more reliant on Grab as it's fantastic. It's a beautiful thing to have in living in Thailand. So the next one is Singapore-based hotel booking site Red Doors suffers a data breach affecting nearly 6 million customers. And GitHub fixes major security flaws. Again, your daily notification that there's no security. And badges for Instagram Live is rolls out a way for users to pay and support creators Instagram won't take a cut. Badges for Instagram Live. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Badges are officially launching in the US. Today, Instagram is officially launching its Badges feature, which gives viewers a way to pay and support creators on Instagram Live. As predicted, you're going to need to be able to pay the live streamers because they're going to turn into salespeople very soon here. Badges are available as, they don't take any cut. That's great. Yeah. Commerce, here it comes. And the next one is from The Verge. It says, a look at Facebook's attempts to decrease info sharing internally, especially for its research and integrity divisions, some worry at the expense of product safety. Well, you can understand this was the most obvious thing in the world, because Facebook had a very unusual open system that allowed anybody of their 60,000 employees to share and search for documents from any of the other 60,000 people. And that's how Frances Haugen, the whistleblower, was able to get documents from Instagram, that a company she doesn't even work at, and share those documents with the Wall Street Journal without even knowing what those documents are really about. And so you can understand how Facebook says, you know what, it was fun while it lasted, but maybe we need to put a lock on the front door. Maybe we should start using keys for this house. Yeah, maybe you should. That's kind of nice that you were, that weirdo in the neighborhood who left all their doors open 24 hours a day. But yeah, nobody else does that. And now you know why nobody else does that. So now they're going to do what everybody else does and not let every employee in the company search for everybody else's documents. So a quick refresh to see if there's a new one that's come in since we started. No. Okay.
Wait, there's actually interesting data though. You said, wait, so at Facebook, everybody could search for everybody else's documents?
Yes.
Well, if you think about that, that's actually pretty fascinating. That as big as that company is, the only leak they had was that little leak here and there. Like that means
Precisely.
that there's probably not that much bad shit going on.
Exactly right. That's the logical adult conclusion out of all this, and the fact that the journalists have their recent internal documents from Facebook that they're leaking are utterly pointless. Which means even with Frances Haugen spending a month digging through the dumpster of every file she could get, and she found tens of thousands of files that she sucked out of Facebook and sent to the Wall Street Journal. There were so many that the Wall Street Journal said, we can't possibly review all of these, so we're employing a dozen other sister publications, like the New York Times and CNN and everybody, and let's share this treasure trove of documents. And guess what? We couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it's funny to me how like they're going around the thing everybody's talking about, data sovereignty. They're going around it. Okay, well let's go try to find some crap on Facebook. Then just talk about the issue. It's like, hey man, let's talk about data sovereignty stuff and just have a discussion about it rather than try to come up with some story of who sexually harassed who somewhere, some employees did something or something like that. Like it actually dilutes the real conversation we need to have.
So we're going to get into the tweets here that Poppy just shared this one, and then I'm tweeting out. It says, it will be impossible to control a super intelligent AI. Calculations suggest it'll be impossible to control a super intelligent AI. Yeah. Not only calculations, common sense suggests it'll be impossible to control a super intelligent AI. I don't need calculations for that. That's common sense. The next one is, and for those who don't understand the point here, it's because a super intelligent AI could manipulate the internet in superhuman ways and replicate itself and grow exponentially as only a digital based being could. And could essentially take over the entire internet like the world's best hackers times 1,000.
Especially if we feed it tasty pwneware.
It'll do it, especially if you sit there and just put some parameters of how, once it learns how to break certain things. What people don't know is like you could break an API here, you could break an API there, or overload an API with data requests here, there, and if we could do that in real time using AI, like all types of, it'll be like, oh, if you break this over here from this small plumbing company and mess up with this baker shop over here, you break a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of dependencies in the internet. Letting AI kind of hackers getting into like creating automated AI hacking and malware that just kind of grows by itself, right? And does machine learning along the way and just is a machine learning worm in the world. Whew, I'm surprised we haven't seen that yet, actually.
So Pfizer has requested federal authorization for its pill to treat COVID-19. Trial data shows that Pfizer new pill greatly reduces hospitalizations and deaths in high-risk adults with early symptoms. There we go. Fingers crossed. And the first human trial of Alzheimer's disease nasal vaccine is to begin at Boston Hospital. 16 participants will receive 2 doses of the vaccine 1 week apart. The Alzheimer's vaccine. Unbelievable. We are living in the future.
Tyler, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Your voice sounds low on my end. With the Pfizer article, did you also comment on how they were opening the patent so that it could be replicated worldwide?
That was a separate headline from a couple days ago.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Biden just buy Pfizer and viral pills for 10 million people. So just hours ago.
Cheryl found one from Wired. It says, this is a big win for researchers as they continue to explore possible routes to getting characters out of this is about BCI. Here we go. A new brain implant translates thoughts of writing into text. In early experiments, a paralyzed man with implants in his premotor cortex typed 90 characters per minute. That's actually rather fast typing. By envisioning what he was writing by hand. So it tapped into the part of his brain responsible for handwriting, and he imagined himself handwriting, and it converted that into typing text at 90 words per minute. Remarkable. And the next one is the Brave browser from Craig. We covered that one. They're getting a crypto wallet, and also that Microsoft opens a 100% carbon-free energy data center in Sweden. We covered that. Qualcomm stock hits record highs after it says it will grow without Apple. We covered that. And then from Karam, Pakistan startups draw record money helped by COVID and China's tech crackdown. The headline from Bloomberg that I just tweeted says startup fever is gripping the world's last big untapped nation, which would be Pakistan. Global investors are pouring money into Pakistan's budding tech sector. Funding this year has outstripped the last 6 combined. Yes, well, indeed, a lot of the investment that was going into China is going into India. India's booming like nothing the world has ever seen in terms of startups and unicorns and future unicorns. And Pakistan being next door and always feeling rather competitive with its neighbor in India. Even the Prime Minister, Khan, is being very vocal about how he wants to boost the startup ecosystem in Pakistan because they don't want to see India become, the super tech power and them not follow along. So, it makes sense. Yeah, they're going to push as hard as they can. And the crypto.com arena taking over the naming of the LA Staples Arena in LA. Ken sent that one in. And the Zuckerberg shows off the robotic, the glove, the tactile haptic glove that lets you feel virtual objects in Facebook's metaverse. We covered that. And then here's the one I was talking about of Twitter's CFO, Ned Siegel, that Ken found. That Twitter's CFO says investing in crypto doesn't make sense right now. Investing some of Twitter's corporate cash in crypto assets such as Bitcoin doesn't make sense right now, says Ned Siegel. And the next one's from Willie, where we were talking about yesterday, I think in this time zone, we were talking about phthalates that was finding its way into fast food. Does that ring a bell? And there was a study done of many fast food restaurants from McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and pretty much all of them. And turns out 80% of the samples had these phthalates, which are plastic softeners, which are very unhealthy for human consumption. Very concerning indeed. And so Willie found this article that says deaths linked to hormone disruptor chemicals costs billions in lost U.S. productivity. Daily exposure chemicals called phthalates used in manufacture of plastic food containers and many cosmetics may lead to roughly 100,000 premature deaths among older Americans each year. A new study shows the resulting annual economic burden is between $40 billion and $47 billion, a value more than quadruple that of previous estimates. This is from NYU Grossman School of Medicine. The phthalates thing is a far bigger issue than people realized. And it's now in our fast food, particularly in meat. So enjoy that Whopper. Big Mac.
Can I have a Whopper with a slice of plastic on the side, please? Make it a little bit hot.
Extra phthalates, please. The next one is from Todd McLeese from the Wall Street Journal. The headline says, "Ping, ding, chirp notifications are driving us crazy." What a great headline. With workplace tools multiplying and personal messages creeping in, it can be hard to get anything done. Research finds people switch screens an average of 566 times a day. When something external diverts our focus, it takes us an average of 25 minutes to get back our original task. Ping, ding, chirp. Notifications are driving us crazy. What a great headline. The next one's from Hassan in the audience. He sends in this one, that debris generated by the dangerous Russian space missile test caused the ISS astronauts and cosmonauts to undertake emergency procedures for safety. And that it's unthinkable that Russia would endanger not only international partner astronauts on the ISS, but its own cosmonauts.
And also its relations with China. Like there's a number of Chinese installations that were in a similar orbit that could potentially be at risk. And obviously they're quite pally-pally at the moment. It's just a very strange move.
Yeah, I agree.
Gotta wonder if they were hacked.
Oh, that's a good theory.
Man,
did you see? Did you look in? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I think I got a bad signal.
No, I was going to say that's a really harrowing thought that hackers could get a couple of satellites to crash and cause a chain reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Eli, did you see what the satellite actually was? The Cosmos satellite?
No,
that they were shooting down.
I haven't been able to follow this one.
It was an electronic and signals triangulation satellite, so it was designed specifically to find and triangulate electronic signals and track them. That's quite satisfying for the conspiracy hat.
Yeah.
Okay, well, kind of on a related note, the next one from Saudamini that I'm tweeting out now says Google tells workers that Google can compete for Pentagon contracts without violating its principles. Google's pursuing the contract 3 years after an employee revolt forced the company to abandon work on a Pentagon program. And I remember covering this. This is from the New York Times, by the way. And this was brought up, like the New York Times a couple weeks ago was saying, oh, Google's trying to do work for the Department of Defense again and for the Pentagon. And some Google employees don't like that. And they had, a bit of a mutiny. And Google backed down. And now Google's trying to reposition itself to walk a tightrope with its own employees and let the employees know very politely that actually we need to do this. So this is going to be one of those interesting moments.
Dear employees, we are a commercial enterprise.
Yes.
Please comply. This is not a charity. Yours sincerely, Google.
Something nearly identical to that. Dave, have you considered a job in the PR department or HR department at Google?
I think I would fail miserably, being incredibly direct, Tyler.
Yeah, I appreciate the Irish way of doing it, though, the dry humor. Something tells me the humor would be missed, though. The Google executives told employees last week in a company-wide meeting that it is interested in a Pentagon contract for cloud computing and that working for the military would not necessarily conflict with principles created by the company for how its AI technology would be used. Google is pursuing the contract 3 years after an employee revolt forced the company to abandon work on a Pentagon program that used AI to establish new guidelines against using AI for weapons or surveillance. The pursuit potentially set up another clash between company leaders and employees. Google Cloud Unit prioritized preparation for a bid on a Pentagon contract, the New York Times revealed this month, pulling engineers off other projects to focus on creating a winning proposal. The rush to pursue the contract is a dramatic shift for Google, which said in 2018 that it would not bid on major cloud computing contract with the Defense Department, known as the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure, or JEDI, because the work would conflict with its AI principles. The JEDI cloud computing contract, estimated to be worth $10 billion, was awarded to Microsoft. But facing legal challenges from Amazon, the Pentagon scrapped the contract in July and announced a new plan to purchase cloud computing technology. The segmented nature of the contract allows Google to work on parts of the Pentagon cloud without violating its ban on weapons, Google executives told employees in a video conference meeting Thursday. So please don't revolt. We need the money. And
P.S. You're already working for the government.
Correct. P.S. We've been doing this since you were born. Yeah. P.S. You have no idea what's really going on. And that's nice.
Well, quite interesting then, maybe, Tyler, with the amount of leaks that we've been having recently, there's going to be people that aren't happy with this that do know what's going on. So, I mean, it's a very small chance, but we may see, this may incentivize certain people working inside Google who aren't really happy with the state of things to come forward and release some details potentially.
Yeah, we might start seeing more leaks. Here's a quote. We understand that not every Googler will agree with this decision, but we believe Google Cloud should seek to serve the government where it is capable of doing so and where the work meets Google AI principles and our company values. Yeah, we understand not every Googler will agree with this decision. I have to imagine that there's likely to be a bit of a Coinbase diaspora of folks who are putting their personal values over company values, and they're going to realize that their personal values are not compatible with working for big tech companies. But then they're going to have to do some internal, soul searching to decide, how much their values are worth economically. Are they willing to give up their role at, a big tech company? I feel like
Right, Tyler. And the 95% will stay, wallow, complain, trundle around, dragging feet, and then 5% will actually have the courage of the convictions to eject themselves. But yeah, in my experience of businesses, that's we know how this one
I mean,
runs.
that 5% worked last time, Dave.
Okay, so the next one is Facebook says hackers in Pakistan targeted Afghan users amid government collapse. Oh boy. Hackers from Pakistan used Facebook to target people in Afghanistan with connections to the previous government during the Taliban's takeover of the country, Facebook said. The company's threat investigators said in an interview with Reuters. Facebook said the group, known in the security industry as SideCopy, shared links to websites hosting malware which could surveil people's devices. Targets included people connected to the government, military, and law enforcement in Kabul. Facebook said it removed SideCopy from its platform in August. Facebook said the group created fictitious personas of young women as romantic lures to build trust and trick targets into clicking phishing links or downloading malicious chat apps. Oh, that old ruse. the sexy vixen hack. It also compromised legitimate websites to manipulate people into giving up their Facebook credentials. Here's a quote. "It's always difficult for us to speculate as to the end goal of a threat actor," says Facebook's head of cyber espionage. "We don't know exactly who was compromised or what the end result of that was." Major online platforms and email providers, including Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn, have said they took steps to lock down Afghan users' accounts during the Taliban's swift takeover of the country this past summer. Facebook said it had not previously disclosed the hacking campaign, which it said ramped up between April and August due to safety concerns about its employees in the country and the need for more work to investigate the network. It said it shared information with the U.S. State Department at the time, and it took down the operation, which it said had appeared well resourced and persistent, meaning it's from the government. And that's not a huge surprise when you understand that Pakistan is run by ISI, which is their version of the CIA. It's a very unique country where the intelligence agency runs the country. And so it's not a surprise that they would use intelligence gathering against the Afghanis next door, but very concerning. And now you know you might be recalling the article we read like 5 articles ago about how Pakistan wants to ramp up as a startup country. And speaking of Afghanistan, this one from Reuters, Norway urges support for UN to fund aid to Afghanis in Afghanistan. Norway pledges $23 million to UN fund to support Afghans. Norway urges others to contribute. Foreign minister says Afghanistan faces winter humanitarian crisis. Norway on Tuesday urged other countries to contribute to the United Nations Fund by providing cash directly to Afghans so they can survive the winter. The Afghan economy imploding, the United Nations set up the fund last month to provide direct help for local households, bypassing the Taliban and drawing on donor funds frozen since it took power in August. Norway pledged $23 million, which is managed by UNDP. Here's a quote: "We encourage other countries to do the same, to pitch in to avoid a pressing humanitarian crisis and a potential famine." And Norway will take over the UN Security Council presidency starting in January. Thank God for that. I hope the discussion in the Security Council tomorrow will contribute to give some attention to the situation in Afghanistan. The fund's purpose is to build a bridge between a humanitarian effort and something more long-term in order for people to support themselves. Well, that's going to turn into endless aid.
Tyler, I think
Yes.
it is becoming lot political. It's not about the quantity of the aid, but the neighboring country, Pakistan, wants to act as a gatekeeper to any of the aid which is going to Pakistan.
Yeah, so does the Taliban, yeah.
So India were about to send 65,000 tons of wheat. They were waiting for last 2 months, and Pakistan didn't allow the trucks of Indian wheat to pass through their country and go to. So finally, they have after a lot of hue and cry, they have allowed like last couple of days. But what they're saying is that India should take all these wheats and transfer via aircraft or something, and that's so ridiculous because 50,000 tons of wheat can't be transported via air, can't be airlifted. It has to go via train.
Why do you think Pakistan's not letting it through or wasn't letting it through?
No, because they don't. So they want to. It's the reasons are quite obvious. They don't want India to interfere in Pakistan's in Afghanistan's affair in one way or the other. We have actually built our detour. Uh, the whole reason of building that Chabahar port in Iran by India was to bypass Pakistan and connect with Afghanistan by that route. So had this country been so polite or so thoughtful of their neighbors, these things wouldn't be happening at the first place. But they are. Their reliance is their whole existence depends on how they create all this bartending situation, or let's say all this information or supply imparity. So
But
now,
you got to be fair though, dude. You know, Amish, I mean, I'm actually it's interesting because I'm sitting in Kashmir right now, like in Kashmir, India, right? There's like 100,000 troops on this side. There's hundreds of thousand troops on that side. These guys are messing with each other left and right. And unfortunately, like these Kashmiri people that see themselves as a separate people are in the middle of like two different countries' problems, right? So it's like there's, oh, well, you did this and you did that and you did this and you did that. That's what's really going on. So it's like this is just one of the issues of the many that these two countries have together, right? That's just been going on for 50, 60 years. It should really get resolved because, I mean, I'm seeing the outcome of normal Joe Blows over here trying to live with soldiers every other corner. I walk around with people pointing machine guns at me all day long over here, dude. You know, like they literally have machine guns all over the place. So
yeah, I can go in detail and explain what has happened and what not has happened, but I'll give you the ballpark number. All four. I don't want to like diverge into more of a political discussion. I can explain you what exactly is happening and what's the case there. But all four wars against India were initiated by Pakistan at some point of time, and they were.
But that's not true. That's not true. That's just not true, dude. Like, instead of going into that, like, see, the thing is, if you got to state the facts, you know, I mean, there was a genocide in Kashmir, dude. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed over
When
here.
was this genocide happen? And
In
who
47, it was at 47 or something, and then you know, then
the
you had
genocide was happen? Genocide happens first by when the Afghans and the Pakistanis orchestrated their attack on Kashmir. The and
no,
half of the
that's
territory
how
was
bad it
taken. Then
is.
I can quickly if you want I can
Yeah,
send you
but
the all. See,
you're
there's a lot of information asymmetry which is floating
Armish,
around
hang
in
on.
this.
Armish, you got to stay
No,
focused on the fact that India is trying to send food to starving Afghanis and Pakistan's not letting them, and then debate that. Is Pakistan letting them or not? And if they are not letting them, you know, have
Now
strong
actually
evidence for that, so that when somebody challenges you, we need video or as much evidence as possible that Pakistan's roadblocking this humanitarian aid
that's the
and
best
stick.
thing to do.
yeah,
Because
this is actually in the
going back to
news.
arguments about 1947, everyone's going to die if you do that.
Yeah, the best thing to do is what you just said, Tyler. If look, here's
No,
the
but
thing.
Maher brought this point, right? So I was focusing on that point. Maher wanted to talk about Kashmir, but Kashmir
Yeah,
is
but
not
don't
the
fall
issue
for
here.
it. Don't fall for stupid
no.
debates. Just stay
What
focused
I'm
on
saying
the
is
issue,
this
which
is
is there's Afghanis starving. India wants to feed them and have very strong evidence of that, and then bring it to the UN, and then that's all you can do.
no, but what I'm saying is that the routes, the routes here, right? These roads that connect, between Pakistan and India, on both sides, they're stopping each other from doing things. But I like this idea of a video thing. Have a video show up with like
No, but
Indians saying,
Maher,
"Hey,
it's not gonna go via Kashmir. It's gonna go via Wagah border, which is in Punjab, which is like quite peaceful areas. People keep on going from there, this side to the other. So Kashmir is not at all involved in this transfer. All these trucks are standing at Wagah border, which is in Punjab, and it has been delayed. And it's all over in the news. When India raised it with the UN, then also Taliban now actually
Armish,
has requested.
send me the most reputable news outlet who's covering that with
yeah, the way you
with
get
the
it through
photo.
is news." What
Yeah,
Tyler just said, have videos and tell, "Hey, we're here trying to get food across to the Afghanistan people.
yeah.
Can you let us go through?" Because it's all politics. What I'm saying is both sides India and Pakistan politicians, right, do this crap, right? And it gets in the way of like normal people just wanting to do normal stuff like feed each other, right? So it's when you get into like, oh, this like Pakistan or India, it's like, no, there's just a group of people trying to cross a border here with and to feed people. Can we bring attention to this and then let them through, right? So whoever's blocking will get pressure to let the aid through. You know, the aid lines should
This is
go
where
go
this
through.
is this is where journalism becomes very important, because then the Guardian or the BBC will reach out to Pakistan's Prime Minister Khan and say, why aren't you letting aid come through from India into Afghanistan through Pakistan? And then he'll have to answer, or he won't have a comment. And then the Guardian will say, hey, Pakistan's roadblocking emergency aid into, millions of people are going to die this winter in Afghanistan, and all the better, actually, because what a great way to drive awareness that this is happening. Because one of the tragedies is, as the Norwegian foreign minister is trying to say, is she's trying to get people to wake up and understand this is happening. I mean, we only know it's happening because we're kind of sensitive to these global issues, but the vast, it's very, very, very few people outside of this room are aware of what's going to happen in Afghanistan this winter. You're going to have 22 million people die. No one's aware
Tyler,
of it.
it was there in the New York Times. I'm sending you the New
Yeah.
York Times article.
Okay,
So.
thank you. So
Yeah, and that's a
I don't
great,
doubt what you're saying.
that's
I'm
a
just
great
saying
point.
let's have a good process for how we do this. And I want to get to, we have two last stories, and I'm 15 minutes behind here. Somebody sent in one through the DMs. Letitia, thank you for this one, from The Guardian. And it's pinned at the top of the room. It says, the biggest open secret out there, the double lives of white-collar workers with two jobs. And if there was any news article that was more concerning than the Afghan winter that might, lead to the demise of 22 million people in Afghanistan. And God bless the Norwegians for, trying to drum up support to get them through the winter. But this article that somebody just sent in is, in fact, the most concerning story that I'm aware of. And this one says, the zombie apocalypse, how gene editing could be used as a weapon and what to do about it. And now we're starting to see articles about what I've described multiple times in this room, about engineered pathogens. And they even go into how to stop it in using the WHO, etc. And it says many countries are aware of the risks of essentially genetically modified gene weaponizing pathogens. It says last year the Nobel Prize in Chemistry recognized the development of CRISPR, but CRISPR can theoretically also be used for darker purposes, such as bioterrorism. It could alter pathogens to make them more transmissible or fatal. Alternatively, it could turn a non-pathogen, such as a harmless microbe, into an aggressive virus. The technique may even be able to alter a virus to make it dangerous for a larger range of species than it currently infects. Whether CRISPR could be used to infect humans in a way to make them zombie-like remains theoretical speculation. If a zombie-like disease could be created, it clearly wouldn't make people reawaken as zombies, but an infection that passes through saliva with extremely high transmission and mortality rate, and which causes agitation, such as a virus would spread rapidly from human to human in a similar manner to disease. Anyway, given the possibilities, it's not surprising that the director of the U.S. National Intelligence, James Clapper, termed gene editing, quote unquote, as weapons of mass destruction and proliferation. Many countries are aware of the risks. The U.S. government released the first biodefense strategy, and then the article goes into how to stop it with WHO and whatnot. So we will leave you on that very optimistic news, and we will be back again in 6 hours. Or is there one in the meantime, Cheryl?
Yeah, we
Hey,
have
Tyler.
today's setup session in 2.5 hours time. So if you are
Okay.
interested, please join. I will pin it on top. Thank you.
And one last request. Please go open your LinkedIn app on your device and look for Tech News Around the World and follow it. We actually need it's actually 150 followers. Now that I was doing the
Okay, we are short of
application,
22.
I think we have 130. We need 20 people to open LinkedIn, look for tech news around the world, and follow it so that we can live stream to LinkedIn. Much appreciated.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you
appreciate
next
it.
time.
Thank you. See you
See
later.
you.
Thank